And hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever episode of Two Guys Talking Sports with Pat McDonald and Tim Birney. I am Pat McDonald from Choice 102 and Radigan Media. Tim Birney with Valley Sports Report and all the sports reports throughout the Twin Tiers here. We're excited to start this new venture where we're going to talk about high school sports a lot, from here in the Valley down to Bradford County and Towanda, Troy, Wyalusing, all the way up to Elmira, over to Owego. So we'll have the NTL covered, the STAC covered, the IAC covered, pretty much everything. And Tim, we're looking forward to it.
Oh, I've been looking forward to this for quite a while since we first started talking about it. I think this gives us a great chance to talk to coaches, to talk to student athletes, have some fun with them. You know, I think we'll be able to talk high school sports. We'll be able to get with some of the kids playing college, Division I, Division II, Division III. You and I will have some fun talking Notre Dame football, Penn State football. We'll talk a little bit of college sports, basketball, wrestling, a little bit of pro sports, whatever. Two guys talking sports. I think it's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Today's first episode is going to feature an interview with Sayre head football coach Ricky Lindblad and Athens offensive coordinator Mike Hibbert and defensive coordinator Steve Satterly. So you're going to hear those coming up right now, and then we're going to come back and kind of preview the start of the Pennsylvania football season here on Two Guys Talking Sports. And our first guest here on Two Guys Talking Sports is Sayre head football coach Ricky Lindblad. How's it going, Coach?
It's going well. You know, we got through the first 2 weeks of practice here. Tomorrow we get our pregame going, and then Friday we strap it up and go to Troy and see where we're at.
Yeah, kicking off over at Alperon Park in Troy. Obviously, probably the worst scheduling it could have been for any team in the NTL.
Yeah, you know, Troy's coming back pretty loaded, so it's a good measuring stick across the NTL of seeing where competition's at, where you line up. You know, a little bit's unfortunate for us from where we were at. You know, this year we've been able to double our numbers from where they were at, but also at the standpoint, we also got to get those kids up to speed. And having Troy as a week one competition is always tough. You know, it is early in the season. They're going to Delaware week 2. So, you know, it might be an opportunity for us to maybe sneak in a couple plays here or there that they're not expecting.
You know, Coach, I got to ask you. Last year, you had some stints as assistant coach. Last year was your first year running a varsity program. Had to be quite an experience for you. What did you pick up? What did you learn last year that you're bringing forward into this year?
You know, last year was a big learning curve for us, being the first time being a varsity player or head coach. Being a player, being an assistant, completely different than being the head coach. You know, there's so many things that you're taking into consideration. One of the things for me was just learning to manage the game and things like that took a little bit difference from where I was at prior, JV, junior high levels, and getting the supporting cast around you is one of the biggest things. So one of the priorities for me in the off season was going out, finding those coaches that want to buy into the philosophy that we have and things like that, and are going to be there for the kids. And I have a great group of guys right now that are willing to do that, and I think we are taking a step in the right direction there.
Talk a little bit about your coaches. I see Guy Kapachak and Paul Blythe both on board with you this year.
Yep, and I got Will Johnston. He Mansfield guy, was at Athens for a little bit of time. He's coming in, helping out with the line. Played some semi-pro with Coach Kapachak. Coach Arnold, Josh Arnold, he's a graduate of Sayre. He's coming back, getting involved in some sort of capacity. And then Todd Green is helping out when he can. Just having a lot of bodies in the schools also helped us build our numbers. They're constantly seeing coaches can build that relationship there. So that's been a huge help for us.
And you got to feel pretty good. You ended the season last year with, 18 healthy kids, and you come into practice with 31, 32 kids. You got to, and I know a lot of those kids don't have a lot of experience, but the fact that you got them on the field is a start.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a start for us. When we had our first engagement, with the kids, figuring out interest, we were actually up in the 40s for those numbers, and we've landed 31, 32 right now. School's starting back up, so maybe we'll see if we can touch base with some of those that haven't been out for 2-a-days, things like that, and get them brought in. We would like to be at 35, 36 plus if we can. Full intent to play a JV schedule this year, especially with the number of underclassmen that we have. Newer guys, newer faces, get them as much playing time as we can to get them the experience and try to close that gap from where it's been.
I know you scrimmaged over at Wellsboro, and you talked to Tim about some players that really stood out for you: Carter Green, Mikey Griffin, Nick Pelicano, some guys we've known for a little bit, Declan Berry, and then a freshman, Braden Driesbaugh. Talked about some of those guys.
Yeah, Carter's come in this offseason, great mindset. He's been a great captain for us, leading a lot of things throughout the summer. He's stepping in as our quarterback this year, playing some DB, linebacker, where we need him. In that sense, Nick's going to be outside at receiver. I think he could have been one of the top NTL guys last year, and then unfortunately we had the injuries where we had to move him into the quarterback role, and that's not really where he wanted to be. It's not where we wanted him to be, but he did it because he's a team player, and that's, was our best available option at the time. Mikey Griffin's going to come back. He's returning on the line, D-end. He's kind of one of those core pieces on the line that's going to be able to give that experience to the younger guys and just continue to build that. He does a real good job relating with the younger guys and working with them through those things. Declan Berry came over from soccer last year. He spent a lot of time this offseason with us learning. He's going to be a receiver, backup quarterback, and then defensive back for us. So he's doing a lot of learning, and he's a very smart kid. Basketball, he gets a lot of reps, varsity this past year, coming off the bench and things like that. So he's very athletic, another leader in that younger group of kids. And then Braden Driesbaugh, he's a freshman coming in. He's a real tough, hard-nosed kid. We had to put him in at running back here and there. We wanted to get him a look because he's a nice, hard runner, and he really impressed us. He's not afraid to come in and stick his nose in with any of them. The first couple days there, padded practices, he was coming for some of the guys that have been there, that have been established. He's like, Coach, I want it all. Bring them at me, and I'm going to line up and give it everything.
I had a 50-50 shot there with Driesball, and I went with the wrong one. So
Yeah.
I'll learn that for one.
All good.
I think I'm there week 2 for you guys, week 2 or 3 at your home game there. So I'll remember it for then.
So, Caden Bennett, one of your better players last year, close to 1,000 yards, close to it.
Close to it.
And he's gone, graduates, but that's high school football. Yeah. Who are you looking to use to replace him this year?
Right now we're looking at Jameer Cole. He played some slot receiver for us. He's quick, very athletic, can make a nice cut, get upfield. He's come in with a different mindset than where he was at last year. There were some times last year where he kind of wanted to bounce around, and we talked about make one cut, get upfield, get north and south, and he's really took that into account this year. And then behind him, we got young guys. We got Braden Driesbaugh, Riley Johnson, possibly. Both of them are freshmen. Hudson Malinowski, he plays some slot for us. He might get some time back there in the backfield if we need to for a little bit more mature experience. And then Theo Molina is another possibility for us. He's a senior. He's going to be kind of a utility. If we need him at running back, if we need him at slot, things like that, he can step in and give us some time there.
If you look around the area, the best teams in the area, the Troys, the Waverlys, the Tiogas, Cornings, they're stacked up front. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter how good your running back is, if your line's not there for him, it's going to be tough sledding.
Right.
But what are you looking like up front? What are your thoughts on your line?
I think we have a solid 8 guys right now that we could rotate if we needed to play here or there. Some younger guys stepping up, really smart football IQ, tough kids, understand, very coachable, able to put into some situations that, they are new to them. Right now we're looking at possibly having a freshman starting at our center. Smart kid, tough. He wants to get in there, get all that contact, but he's also learning from Coach, is understanding what he needs to do at that center role. And then it also is nice that he can look next to him and have some of those more experienced guys up front to give him a little bit of guidance. And then we got, the role players in there. We got Mason Rucker. He's a senior, been with the program for a while. He's able to step in if we need to, give a guy a blow here or there. And then we got Zach Cross, who's an incoming freshman who can step in and give some time. Dom Mezzatessa, he is a basketball player. He came over this year, wanted to get some reps playing football, and he's making strides from where he was at the beginning there.
Now, obviously, week one's a tough one. You're going to Troy, defending champs in the NTL, the heavy favorites to win the large school. You guys in the small school, what do you see around the small school? And then looking at your schedule, I mean, there's some winnable games out there for you.
Yeah, we feel, obviously week one's going to be a tough battle for us. One of our main goals is go in there, be competitive, and come out healthy. And then when we look at the schedule, we got Mansfield at Mansfield, we got Montgomery, Kawaneski Valley, a lot of early games that we can feel we can compete in. And then, later in the season, you get back to Canton, who's had an established program. Their numbers might be a little bit lower, but, Coach Seacrest does a good job over there getting those kids ready to go and reloading the cabinet, per se. And then you got South and you got Muncie in there, who are always tough, hard, physical teams.
And you have Northwest in there, too, another winnable game for you, right? They've struggled the last few years.
So. Yeah. We went down there last year. We didn't play great coming out of the gate, and we did better as the game went on, unfortunately. It was just too late at that time, but we do feel like a lot of those games can be a lot closer or in our favor this year. The mindset of us coaches is going in, let's aim for 500. Let's get back to the playoffs. They take the top four in the small school division for single A, so let's be one of those top four teams and see what we can do once we get back to the playoffs.
Looking at, we talked a little bit about your offense, looking at your defense, I found over the years that teams that are set up like yours don't have that experience, a lot of experience, playing with young athletes and stuff, tend to give up the big play. I'm sure you guys have worked on that, and you're probably stressing that's one thing you need to do is limit those big plays.
Yeah, we've tried to do that. This week we've worked on some techniques and things like that with our front group of guys. We really struggled last year up front. We got pushed into the second level too much. Linebackers weren't able to come up and make a play because they had a D lineman in them. So just limiting those big plays, make them grind out drives. Don't, work hard 20 to 20 and then really buckle down inside those 20 and not break and allow them to score. But stopping the big play is going to be difficult. It's going to take all 11 guys swarm tackling, playing tough. Tackling wasn't a strong point for us last year, and we really worked on technique and things like that these last couple of weeks to try to improve that. And we saw it in the scrimmage. We had some guys that came up and made plays that stood out to us, and we're looking to put them in positions now.
I was driving by the Lockhart Street Bowl earlier and just thinking to myself, it's still one of the best venues in District 4, right? So what's it like the third week? We'll be there on the Choice. I'll have Montgomery at Sayre on Choice 102 and the My Hometown Today app. What's it going to be like for you guys that first week? You're on the road the first 2 weeks to get to come back week 3 at home there at the Lockhart Street Bowl.
It's always great playing at the Lockhart Street Bowl. Us coaches actually were talking about it the other day. We feel like we have one of the more unique stadiums in the area, and it really used to be unique when you had all the trees up there and it kind of felt like you were down in, kind of secluded. I mean, it's opened up now. It's still a beautiful facility. Maintenance and everybody have really worked hard on the grass this year to make sure things are looking a lot better. We got a different entrance that we're planning on doing this year for the kids in the crowd to try to increase that involvement, excitement, things like that, pregame. And then, we're just hoping for a good community turnout too. Get behind these kids. They've been working hard. They've gone through a lot the last couple of years. So the more community support we have, the better it is for them. They're going to give it everything they have every night that they're out there.
I always thought it was funny that the home sidelines was on the other side of the field away from the press box.
Yeah.
And a few years ago they switched that, and you'd have thought that they changed your school colors and your mascot name. And some of the Sayre faithful just had a fit over the fact that they moved you over to the to the press box side, which I think every other school in the country has it that way. You know, but it's just a funny thing. I'm just looking ahead a little bit to the future. How's your junior high numbers?
Junior high numbers right now, we're around 17 is where it was at. They have a couple kind of still waiting to see if they come out. But it's encouraging. It's better than it was last year. And we've also made a point of emphasis there with our coaching staff that we need to start working together more as a program. We're getting together with our Junior Redskins program and talking and trying to help out them as much as we can too. They also made it a priority. Let's get more coaches for the junior high level. That's one of the most important levels for us. The kids got to learn, have the fundamentals down, so then when they come to varsity, we can start picking up on a little bit more of the more advanced things, more complex things. So really that junior high level is very important to break things down and get a good understanding of things. So I think they have 5 coaches right now, 5-6 coaches that are there at practice every day helping break things down and give their knowledge of the game as well to the kids.
I mean, it's only 7th and 8th grade. So that's 8-9 kids a year. That brings you up to 36 kids a year. If you can continue that, you're in pretty decent shape.
Yeah.
My last question for you, looking ahead through this season, what do you need to do to consider it successful when the season's over with?
For me to feel that it's successful, one is I want to be way more competitive than we were last year. There was a lot of things that went on last year, first time coming back, not having a team, things like that. So we want to be way more competitive in games. We joke about it saying we want to be at least 100% better than we were last year. That's at least 2 games. But ultimately our goal is 5, and that's what we want to aim for. We want to aim higher. And just get after it with the kids, see the growth. We've already seen the growth with the kids that we have. The younger kids had a great turnout over the summer, too. We had our junior highs coming in for voluntary practices. When we were doing voluntary practices, a lot of the guys that were there were that younger group. So if we're able to bring those guys up to speed, losing those seniors next year might not be as hard hit for us, and they might be able to pull a few more kids out of the school like, hey, football wasn't as bad this year. Okay. And, winning brings that success and brings out more numbers. So, that's one of our goals is let's get points on the board, win some games. Then that excitement comes back around the program. And we've seen it with the kids even this year. Just the different start to the off season last year. I got a late start with them. So having a full off season with the kids, getting them up the pace on what we're doing, bringing in the new coaches that have plenty of knowledge and share that with the kids, it's just been great. And we've been able to build great relationships with those kids. So just seeing the team growth, I think, is going to be the most important thing for us. And then stringing together some wins, getting us back in the right direction.
I'll give you little words of encouragement. Jason Miller, when he took over at Waverly, they did not win a game the year before he coached. He started that first season with 18 kids on his roster. He's got 63 kids out there right now. Mm-hmm. So you're right. Turning a program around involves winning a little bit to build that momentum in the school because kids want to play on a winner. So I think you're on the right track.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us here, Coach, and good luck this season. We're looking forward to following along, and I know I'll be at a couple games on the radio calling it to the Valley audience here. So
perfect. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys taking the time to, get that knowledge out there with the kids, get the press out there, get their names out there. It's huge for these kids. They enjoy reading the articles, seeing their names and things like that. So we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And joining us now are Athens offensive coordinator Mike Hibbert and Athens defensive coordinator Steve Satterly. How's it going, guys?
Good. Good, Pat.
So you're getting ready for week 1 here in the 2024 season, heading down south to South Williamsport High School. Obviously they had a great year last year. What have you seen on film with those guys this year?
You want to go? Yeah, no, I mean, South is they're going to be a physical football team. I think that is one of the things. Like you look at teams like Troy and South, they're weight room bought in, and they're going to be a physical style football team. So we are gearing up for a physical game Friday night.
To go off what he said, same thing. I mean, they're going to run the ball. There's typical South team. Big offensive line, good backs. They're going to run hard, and they're going to come right at you, and it's going to be basically what we would call a lunch pail game. 48 minutes. You know, we got to be ready with our physicality. We got to be ready to take advantage of the mistakes and play good football.
You know, you guys have, 30 underclassmen last year, won 3 games. I asked Sean what he learned from last year, and one of the best lines of the year so far. He said it sucked to have 30 underclassmen and only 3 seniors, you know. So but those 30 kids are back this year with a year experience under the belt. What are you guys seeing in the preseason? Are you reaping the benefits yet, or are you still working towards that?
I think you see it. I do. I think we're very much on the cusp of turning that corner. The maturity has come a long way with our football team, and you deal with that when you have some young kids. And I think again, another year in the weight room, another year with the football being in a similar style offense, like that we are starting to see. You know, we're able to expand instead of being into the same things at practice. Maybe there's some of that not understanding that we dealt with last year that now not only are we understanding, but we're able to build off of those things. So I think you're going to see that offensively for us, that we are, we're going to be able to do some different things that we were not able to do last year.
Yeah, you not only had underclassmen, but underclassmen at key positions, including at quarterback, where Athens has been known lately, last 15 years, to have a freshman quarterback and play all 4 years, Shane Roppers and Mason Lister. And now Connor Davidson started as a freshman this year, coming into his sophomore year as his offensive coordinator. What growth have you seen from Connor this year?
I mean, he immediately, when you seen Connor as a freshman, his arm. He had a big time arm. He made throws as a freshman. I mean, he could push an out route and he could put it in a mailbox on the sideline. It was impressive. But the parts of him that have really developed from a leadership standpoint, I think he's very much the spearhead of our football team when it comes to that, and the way that he is moving through his progressions at practice. And really, we talk all the time. I mean, he's probably so tired of hearing me say the crumb leads to the cookie. The crumb leads to the cookie. But that is the mentality that we take at practice, and him working through those progressions has come leaps and bounds from as a freshman quarterback, you get a little bit of the deer in the headlights, and we had some of those growing pains. But again, what he brings to the table from an athletic standpoint and the arm, I think from the neck up is where you've seen the most development from him, and I think that's going to show for us too.
To build on what Pat said, their last 15 years, Athens has had skill players to match any program in this area. But I think the biggest Achilles heel has been the inability to put together consistently strong offensive lines. This year, though, Caleb Nason, Brendan Comstock, looks like you have a pretty nice basis for your offensive line. Where do you think you guys are at there now?
I think we're definitely a little farther ahead than we were last year. I mean, we can make the argument last year we were young, but we did have a couple of 2-year, 3-year starters on our team, and they did a great job doing their job. But a lot of it is cohesion. They have to come together as one line. I mean, we've all heard the line, one heartbeat. It makes sense if you really think about it, because the line is what drives the team. And if we struggle up front, we're going to struggle in the skill positions and scoring points. Brendan and Caleb are natural leaders. You can see it on the field, how they present themselves, how they practice, the things they say, and they're definitely leading the way for us this year. And you can see a lot of more maturity with some of our younger kids, especially some of our sophomores that are going to be stepping up as juniors this year and starting, and a couple freshmen that will be sophomores that will likely get some looks as well.
I stick with that thought. Brendan Comstock was one of the best defensive linemen I saw last year. Had a tremendous year for you guys. Caleb Nason, very solid. You guys have Connor Davidson, good linebacker, or wherever you put him, if he moves around a little bit this year. Your thoughts on the athleticism you've got back this year on both sides of the ball, but, especially on defense, looking at
as a defensive coach, it's awesome because we have 11 guys. We have more than 11 guys that can play defense. And, they listen, they're coachable, they get to the football, they're physical, they love to hit. It does help that most of them are wrestlers and they're familiar with, that aspect of football, and they're also in good shape, so it's a good thing. But I mean, as a coach, it's nice to be able to put kids in certain spots. They sit there, they're constantly asking questions, they're constantly asking where they're supposed to be, and they're studying the game, which is important. And when you have a bunch of kids that want to do that, you'll have a great defense. Getting 11 guys to the ball, playing as one, communication, that's certainly something that we're a little bit better at this year. And in our scrimmage, you can see the growth from them, not just from a physicality standpoint, but from a maturity standpoint. They're starting to understand. A lot of our younger linebackers specifically are starting to understand the reads. They're following their reads. They're doing what they need to do. And it's nice as a team to be able to have multiple kids that can play defense and do at a high level for us.
Now, I know you're a basketball guy, but you talked about wrestling. I've covered sports here in New York and Maine, and some of the best football programs I've covered have had a great wrestling program, and they kind of coexist together. Having Coach Bradley, second year as the football coach, obviously been the wrestling coach for a long time. Have you seen that? Does that help a lot? You think the wrestling and football, do they coexist for you guys?
Yeah, it definitely helps, like with the background, with the basics of tackling,
Yeah.
movement, getting people off the ball. You see it with a lot of the local teams around here, especially Tioga. I mean, most of their kids wrestle and play football, and you can see by how they move people, their balance, their stance, how they come off the ball, things like that. I mean, wrestlers already have that good base of how to to move people, the base underneath them to keep them balanced and stuff like that. And you definitely see it. And having Sean as the head coach with his wrestling background brings in a lot of the kids that are familiar with him as well. Plus the fact that he was also their coach when they were younger. So it's a lot of familiarity with Sean and the program through wrestling, and then having Jay as well with them. So there's a lot of familiarity between the two programs.
We talked a little bit before we came on to here about Connor Davidson. And what a freshman year he had between starting quarterback and then being a key player on the baseball team, winning 30 matches at a midweight, in wrestling. It's kind of unheard of. Pat touched on a little bit, but talk a little bit about Connor. What makes him the quarterback he is? What are we going to look for out of him this year?
I mean, one of the best compliments I think that I could give Connor Davidson is that you guys see the aftermath. You don't see, he's the first one into the weight room. He's the one leading the weight room sessions. He is the one, he's carrying bags. He literally is, he leads from the front. It's not lip service. He's not a rah-rah kid. Now, don't get me wrong. He plays with a ton of fire. At some points, you'd like to spritz it a little bit. It gets, sometimes he wears his emotions on his sleeves. But that's one of the biggest compliments that I could give Connor is that he puts in the work. He studies the film. He lifts the weights. And then you see what that becomes. So from that standpoint, and I can't speak so much to that from a wrestling or a baseball thing, but, I work with Podolinsky over at the middle school, and he raves about Connor as well. So you see it, you do across all three sports, but it's not a fluke. And that's what I'll say about that. He puts it in. He definitely puts it in.
And having somebody like that step up as a leader, even though they were only a freshman last year, now coming their sophomore year, you've seen it randomly over the years where a sophomore could be, I don't know if you name him a captain, but a unquoted captain, right, or unnamed captain, kind of. How big is that to have a young kid who can show the newer, younger kids that you can be a leader at a young age?
I mean, it's a tough role. It's a tough role as a freshman to be expected to lead. I mean, it's Friday night, the lights are bright. I mean, that's a whole different style of football. There's a big difference between a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, on a football field. And they obviously had a ton of success at junior high. And I think it's just going to continue to translate, and it's going to continue to build for him.
Of course, the fact that you only had 6 or 7, 17, and 18-year-olds last year on the team probably helped a little bit too.
I mean, it's going to pay dividends for us moving forward. I truly believe that. I think what this team is growing into. I'm pretty sure I said it before. We're getting ready to turn that corner, and I believe when we do turn that corner, that there's going to be some good football in front of us.
You definitely saw the difference this past Saturday compared to a year earlier. There wasn't that doubt in their eyes. They just okay, we're playing football. They went out, they executed. It was definitely it was good to see because you can see out of the maturity, but also the year of varsity football under their belt. They weren't wide-eyed. They weren't afraid of everything. They just went out and played. Whereas last year you kind of saw a little bit of the the anxiety, playing, a little bit of anxiousness when we were playing it, when we went scrimmage Lackawanna Trail and then week 1. So you can definitely see the maturity from a physicality standpoint, but also from the experience of last year.
We talked about the line a little bit. Connor's going to need some weapons on the outside. Talk about some of those guys. Sean Peters is one of the main guys back, right? Carson Sipley. Talk about some of those guys that are going to help out on the outside and run the ball for you.
I mean, as you guys said, we have a deep receiving core. Eli Chapman has moved to tailback for us. He played a lot of slot receiver for us last year. Adam Kemp on the outside he might be one of the most coachable kids that I've ever. He's so heady. You tell him something on a Tuesday, he reps it Wednesday, Thursday, and it shows up on film on Friday. He's such an intelligent player. He works really hard. He's got strong hands. He catches the ball very well. Carson Sipley's a dog. I can't even give him a bigger compliment than that. I mean, he's a dog. Ryan Cook's going to do some big things for us. Again, we're very deep. We've got Aiden Vanderpool, Connor Garrison, Gage Marmer has really come a long way. He might even be one of Connor's favorite kids. They work very well off script together. That's one of the biggest compliments I can give to Gage is he and Connor are. I mean, that's one mind there between them. Connor starts to move, he pushes the pocket a little bit, and Gage reads it and finds grass and sits down and right now Eli Chapman out of the backfield is going to be he's an explosive runner. He's going to get lost behind that line a little bit. He's a little undersized, but I think what he lacks from the size standpoint, he's such a shifty runner, and he's very intelligent in the way that he runs, and it's hard to get a shot on a kid like that. You worry about maybe playing 10 games with a kid that's a little bit undersized like that, but it's hard to get a good shot on him, So I think we do. We have a ton of weapons, and that's the thing that I've been trying to get Connor to do. It was a last year process coming into this year, but it's more so it's be the point guard, facilitate, get these guys the ball in space and let them do their thing, because we do have a ton of great athletes offensively.
Well, that sophomore class, last year's freshman class, this year's sophomore class, loaded. I mean, a lot of great athletes in that class. And one kid that you didn't mention that had a pretty nice year defensively for you last year, towards the end of the year, nice wrestling season, really good baseball season, tough as nails, Brendan Cook.
Brendan, you can definitely see that Brendan studies. He studies the game. He follows the game. You can see him in practice, the way he does things. He executes. He understands his assignment. He asks questions. I mean, we looked at Huddle. He was one of the kids that watched the most film. He's definitely dedicated himself in the offseason. You mentioned his accomplishments last year. I think he's going to do even better this year. I mean, he is definitely showing out so far on the football field. There's a couple other guys, as well. I think Caleb, we talked about Caleb. I think he's going to have a great year. I think Dom Robbins in the middle, he's going to have a great year. I mean, you can see that he's maturing, getting stronger, starting to understand things. So we have a lot of really, really good kids on defense. And we have a lot of really good kids in general on the team. And I think we're going to surprise some people, both with our play and how we handle ourselves on the field. I think definitely we're going to be, we're going to have a really good year, in my opinion.
You and I talked about it a little bit this summer. Mm-hmm. I honestly think that, Troy's might be in another league from everybody. Yes. Not saying that on a given night you couldn't go in and surprise them.
Oh, yeah, we understand.
But, I mean, I look at your schedule. I see, 7-8 games that you guys have a legit chance of, if not being very, very competitive, in winning. But to do that, what's the key defense? And then we'll get to you, Mike, on offense. What's the key for a big year for Athens on defense this year?
Understanding our assignment. First of all, it's like we follow the philosophy ARC, alignment, responsibility, key. First of all, we got to get lined up correctly. If we're not lined up correctly, bad things can happen. Second thing, we have to know our responsibility. We have to know what gap we have, what man we have, what coverage we're in, if we're sending a blitz and whatnot. And then our key. That's something that we've really worked with the linebackers this year, is reading your keys, understanding if the guard goes this way, I go this way. Running back goes this way, I go this way. I think a lot of it comes down to our ability to play as a group, one specific group on defense, understanding what we're doing, executing, tackling. Tackling was a huge thing for us last year. We struggled tremendously at times with tackling. getting to the football, understanding what we were doing. And I think if we can play as one cohesive unit, like I said before, I think we have a chance to have a really good defense this year.
So, I mean, offensively, and you brought up Brendan Cook, and I'm sitting here, like, racking my brain. Like, Brendan Cook, Dom plays a little bit of H and Y for us, and then I didn't even mention Keegan.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's just a testament to, again, how deep we are. Like, here I am, like, leaving some of our key kids out, you know? But, no, I think offensively this year, it's going to be, for us, it's all about efficiency. And I maybe that's a cliche answer, but I really think there were times last year where we would get in short yardage situations, and we got to be able to lean on certain runs. You know, we have to be able to grind out a yard or two if we need it. And then with Connor, I think Connor finished the season, correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys do know, but I believe it was like 38% completion. And we've just talked about that, and we've harped on it, that's not going to get the job done. So we're looking to, I mean, we realistically want to be sitting in the high 50s, low 60s from that percentage. And I believe if we can get our short to intermediate passing game going, I mean, there's not a throw that he can't make. We're loaded at receiver. And then our run game, like if we were just able to lean into those things. And one of the things that Coach Bradley and I this summer, I mean, we sat down and it was basically, let's trim the fat. Let's find the things that we want to hang our hat on. Let's find our identity and let's lean into it. And I think, you know, he and I worked a lot this summer. Tony was with us as well. Like it was a big thing for us to kind of find that identity. And I think we've done a good job, and I think we're ready to roll. Like last year was a lot of figuring out what we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it. And I think we're much better suited this year going into the year of all being, you know, a collective mind offensively, I guess.
I made the long trip last year, Line Mountain, I think. You opened up at. It was pouring down rain. It was a tough night for you guys.
The rain was poetic.
So this year you're heading way down again, South Williamsport. I'll be down there. Have it live right here on Choice 102 in the My Hometown Today app, 6:45 pregame, 7 o'clock kick. What are the keys to victory week one? And before we get to the rest of the season and overall, week one's always the first.
I just wanted to add one thing. You said, Connor, 38% completion percentage last year. Part of that, though, is the fact that you guys fell behind so often, so quickly, and you got forced to throw the football. So I would think a big key this year is to not fall behind, be able to, you know, be a little more, like you said, efficient offensively and defensively.
So on that, it's funny that you bring that up, actually, because we talked about, I think we had a meeting with the kids a couple months back, and it was a very it was a serious conversation that we had, but we're sitting in the weight room and we're discussing just that, is like, how many times last year did we find ourselves behind the sticks due to mental errors and simple avoidable penalties? And nobody on the staff, nobody on the team liked that answer. And I think we've gone a long way in cleaning a lot of that stuff up. I'm sure you guys were there for the Wyalusing game, but Eli Chapman catches a corner route down inside, maybe close to the 10-yard line, and then we end up getting a penalty because we were misaligned. We didn't have a receiver on the line of scrimmage. We get bumped back, then we get into the whole field goal situation. And it harkens to, like, if we just take care of the things that we can take care of and avoid just what you brought up, that game doesn't come down to a field goal or a snap infraction or any of those things that it turned into. Like, we punch that in, we close that game. So we found ourselves in a lot of games that, you know, you hear we should have. And I always say we could have. Should have, maybe not. Like, we did the things to ourselves to beat ourselves. So there were a lot of games we could have, you know, capitalized on certain things, but we were very mentally out of tune at points last year. And I think that it just, I hate to say it comes with youth, but it does.
No doubt about it.
So circling back, you're going to play a program that figured out how to win games late, right? And they didn't make those mistakes early on. So South Williamsport, a much different team this year. They've lost a lot, but they're well coached. They're going to be tough, right? So how do you start out strong this year in week one and get a win down there?
Defensively, it's make them do what they don't want to do. I mean, everybody knows South wants to run the ball. They have three backs. They have a big line. They have a good quarterback, good wide receiver. Make them do what they don't want to do. We also want to make them have to run. We have to make them run east-west, not north-south. Because once they get going, they're going to be hard to tackle. Make them do what they don't want to do. Tackle. Tackling's going to be a huge thing this week. We have to tackle. Coach Roppers, you know Aaron, he was talking to Brendan about the game, and he goes, you do realize this is going to be like a wrestling and overtime match because it's going to be that style of football. They're going to get in their formation. They're going to come at you 3 plays. They might punt. They may not. I mean, you don't know. But that's the mentality that we need to have. We need to be physical up front. We need to tackle. We need to swarm to the football. And when they do put it in the air, we need to take the advantage of it. We have corners that can do that. We have a safety that's very good in the back end. So we just got to limit, make them do what they don't want to do, tackle, and get off the field and give our offense an opportunity to some short field, good field position to score.
And then offensively, I mean, there's 2 schools of thought. You fight fire with fire. South goes on a 13-play drive. You better be ready to hang your hat on a 14 or 15-play drive and be that patient football team, limit the mistakes. Or you go out and you put some points on a team like this and make them chase, and that also brings them out of their comfort zone. It's hard to settle into running the ball when you're down 2 possessions or something like that. So we're going to get that going Friday, but it depends on, you feel the game and you see how everything goes. But I think this offense is very poised to have an explosive outing. And if we do get into that boxing match, I think we're well suited for that as well.
Hey, if we win the toss, you can kind of determine what kind of game it's going to be. Just like wrestling.
If it was rock, paper, scissors, I like our chances.
Yeah, we have a guy who's pretty good at rock, paper, scissors.
All the 7-on-7s that we went to this summer, like you determined who gets the ball first, and our quarterback his record at rock, paper, scissors was pretty good this summer.
Yeah, he's definitely good.
Well, so he's a man of many talents.
Many
Yes,
talents.
yes,
Many
is.
talents.
That's Athens offensive coordinator Mike Hibbert, defensive coordinator Steve Satterly. Guys, thanks for joining us here. Good luck this season.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys.
Mr. Birney. Thank you, Pat.
All right, Tim, let's talk some NTL football. We'll start with the small school, the Sayre Redskins in the NTL small school there. Coach Lindblad and company heading over to Troy to the large school favorite. But let's talk about the small school a little bit. Who do you see there? Obviously, South Williamsport coming back. They went all the way to state semifinals last, right?
Yeah.
Lost a lot of players, but probably you would think the favorites again this year.
Well, they lost to Muncie in the regular season last year and then came back and thumped them in the district finals. So, Muncie's got to be in that conversation too. I think those are the 2 teams. I know South Williamsport lost 12 seniors. Good program. Still should be pretty good this year. I don't know if they're as good as they were last year. Well, that's to be determined. Muncie has lost a lot of kids over the last few years, but again, a good program. After that, I think Sayre's in the mix to win a lot of games. I mean, there's 7 or 6 small schools.
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, the other 3 teams, the other 3 games are winnable for them. So there's a couple large schools that they play that are winnable. So I could see them winning. I think 5-5 is possible. I'm looking at more along the lines of a 4-win season, but I think they can end up in 3rd place in the small school.
And Coach Lindblad said that 5-5 mark is kind of his goal right now. So in the NTL small school, Kawaneski Valley, Montgomery, Muncie, Northwest, Sayre, and South Williamsport. So, yeah, some winnable games in there. Like I said to Coach Lindblad, when you look at that schedule, that first week's daunting. You're heading to El Brown Park playing a Troy team who is favored by multiple touchdowns against every team in this league, right? Small and large.
At least.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, though, if they stay healthy coming out of that Troy game, they can win the next 3 games.
Yep.
They have Kawaneski Valley, Montgomery, and Northwest. So I think not in that order, I don't think, but they definitely could win the next 3 games after that.
Yeah, so South Williamsport, I would think, is definitely the favorite there. Although you don't know who they lost 11, 12 seniors. So we'll see how they do against Athens in week 1. Athens heading down there. I'll have it on Choice 102 in the My Hometown Today app on Friday night. So let's talk about the NTL large school. We said Troy's the favorite. I mean, I think they're probably 3 touchdowns at least.
4, 5. I mean, I think a lot of games they're named their own score in the NTL.
I think Towanda is a team that's going to be up there. They lose Craig Dossie, a legendary coach, but Coach Wecker comes in, who's coached there before. And you have who I probably think is the best player in the league, and Riley Vanderpool at quarterback back. So I think Tawanda's going to be pretty good. I think,
I think if Vanderpool stays healthy, but he reminds me a lot of Mike Wandell, who played for Newark Valley a few years ago. He was just indispensable on both sides of the football. I had never seen anybody that was more heart and soul to a team. And I think Vanderpool's in that same breath. He stays healthy, they win football games. And then after that, I think Athens is in a position too where, I think they could play with Towanda, but Troy's in a different world. I think they can play with Towanda, but I think Athens has a chance to win 7 or 8 football games this year if they. They got to limit their mistakes. They killed themselves with penalties last year. They killed themselves with turnovers last year. They just have to, offensively, they just have to protect the football, and then on both sides of the ball, they got to get rid of the dumb penalties. And if they do that, I really think they could win 6, 7, 8 games this year.
Yeah, I think Athens Towanda on that Thursday night now in October. They moved it to it's going to be Towanda at Athens on a Thursday, so that's going to be a fun game. I think those two teams are pretty even. As long as that's pretty far down the line of the season, so we'll
Correct.
see health wise where they're at. But we talked about Riley Vanderpool, Connor Davidson, one of the best athletes in the region. Too.
We talked about him with the Athens coaches. I don't remember a freshman. I mean, there's been a lot of them. We've been blessed with a lot of great athletes in this valley, but Connor Davidson had a tremendous year last year in all 3 sports. And we don't see many freshmen at wrestling 152, 160 pounds winning 30 matches in a year. So you put that with the football season he had and a good baseball year. It's just a pretty incredible freshman season.
So it should be a fun NCL large school season. You got Athens, Canton, North Penn, Mansfield, Towanda, Troy, Wellsboro, and Wyalusing. So I think, Canton's going to be Tyler Seacrest, one of the best coaches around. He's going to have those guys ready. Ben Fitch, their quarterback, who had a heck of a year last year, is back. Holden Ward, I think, is the final ward of this latest group of wards going through.
I'll take your word for it. I can't keep them all straight.
I think it's Holden. It might be Hudson. I think it's Holden. So he's back out. So we'll see. Canton's going to be. I wouldn't put anything past Tyler Seacrest and the Warriors.
No, I just think it's going to be different from them though,
Yeah.
because they've had so many weapons over the last few years and so many kids they could go to, and it's thinning out a little bit. They've got 3 or 4 kids now instead of 8 or 9.
And the offensive line's been great too.
Yeah,
So.
So I think this is they should be good, but I'm curious to see how good.
Yeah. So we talked a lot of Pennsylvania football. New York's still got a couple weeks before we get going here on the New York side of things. So we're going to talk more about that as we get going, and we're going to talk about other sports too. We're hoping to get some other coaches, from volleyball coaches, soccer coaches, golf coaches, cross country, everybody in here, some athletes as well. What are some of the other things you're looking forward to this fall?
Well, oddly enough, the number 1 non-football related story I'm following this fall is the Waverly girls swim team. Mira Kittle coming back for her junior year. She's done things her freshman and sophomore year that are unprecedented for not only girls, but she was the first freshman in Waverly history to ever go to states in 2 events, even including the boys, which that program has put out incredible swimmers. Then you throw Olivia Cheresnowski in there, Lauren Wells. They had 4 or 5 8th graders last year that won a lot of races and a lot of points for them. I honestly think you could see, Kittle going to state again in a couple states again in a couple events plus a relay. Cheresnowski maybe. I know she's got some times that if it weren't for Kittle would beat school records that Kittle holds.
Yep.
And these young 8th graders are phenomenal. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what they do the next couple of years. And then you look at Tioga volleyball, very, very young but very talented. Good JV team coming to replace a couple girls that graduated last year. Des Ford, probably, incredible coach.
The best around volleyball.
Yeah, her
in every sport.
Her and Pam Quinlan at Cantor, she's got a couple state titles, something Des doesn't have.
Yep.
But Des has put together incredible numbers over the years, getting to states and winning section title. I think she's got 10 section titles or maybe more now. The other thing is the 2 Athens cross country runners, Sarah Bronson, Graham Wank. To see that, hopefully they'll get back to states. Waverly's got a couple quality runners. I'm hoping that we maybe get 1 or 2 of them to states. So I think it's going to be a pretty fun fall season. You got some good, solid Waverly girls soccer team, very young, but they add Caitlin Sutton, who had to sit out last year, a transfer from Sayre. Plus, they get Addison Westbrook out, who missed her entire junior year to a knee injury. So they get them back with some Olmsted girls who are very talented. So that should be a pretty good program, a pretty good year. So I think it's going to be a fun year all the way around.
I'm looking forward to Athens golf, obviously. Back on a roll, even though they lost their best player in Evan Cooper.
And number 2 or 3, Nick Jacob was number 2 or 3.
Yeah,
so
they're bringing back, and they've already won a few this season, right? And then Jake, talking about legendary coaches, talking about Des Ford, Jake Lezak, going to hang up the whistle after this year at Athens Soccer. So looking forward to seeing what Coach Lezak can do, and we're going to definitely try to get him on this podcast here before the end of the year.
No doubt.
And he's been a great coach and a great guy down there at Athens, and man, they've won a lot of games and some big titles, and I mean they've dominated the NTL for a long time and won some district championships too. So looking forward to seeing what Coach Lezak can do his final year at the helm of the Athens boys soccer program. We do want to thank Sayre head coach Ricky Lindblad, Athens offensive coordinator Mike Hibbert, defensive coordinator Steve Satterly for joining us here on the first episode of Two Guys Talking Sports with Tim Birney and Pat McDonald. This is a long episode, longer than we're expecting. We're going to do 2 a week going forward, so we'll be much shorter. Not much shorter, but shorter than this.
But also like to thank Dave Radigan for the use of the studios here on the island, as you call it, Choice 102.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have it here, and we're going to be playing some of the sound on the Choice Morning Show each week, just to give some of our listeners some of the sound here, and then also promote this new venture that we're starting.
Okay, one question for you, Pat. Penn State football, how far do they go this year?
I mean, I think playoffs is the minimum they should ask for out of Coach Franklin. I mean, a 12-team playoff, I think 4 or 5 out of the last 6 years they would have made it. So hopefully with no Michigan on the schedule. But
can they beat Ohio State?
I don't know. Ohio State's tough, but it is at home, although Fox is screwing Penn State again by making it a noon game, so it won't be a whiteout at night, which really hurts that. But Penn State's got a stretch of USC on the road, Ohio State, and Washington at home right in the middle of the season.
USC can't stop anybody.
Yeah, that's true. I'm looking forward to it. Notre Dame, Penn State, both ranked pretty high right now, and it should be a fun year in the 12-team playoff. I know some people don't like it. I'm looking forward to it.
I wish they'd go to 16. Just get over with it.
It's going to be a blast.
Go to 16.
So we're looking forward to talking high school sports, college sports, pro sports coming up this year, throughout the year here on Two Guys Talking Sports. Tim, it's been a blast, the first one. We'll look forward to the next.
Me too.